the obstacles that you're experiencing in meditation, they are the same obstacles that are expressing themselves in your whole life. This is one of the most valuable things about meditation. This is the time to create a laboratory out of your experience and see what is actually the case. Because one thing that's guaranteed is that if for 23 hours you're in a state of disharmony, when you come to sit in meditation, during that 1 hour, that disharmony will be there. When you sit in meditation, what it is that's arising in your meditation will be a reflection of what is going on throughout your whole life. Just the only difference is, with meditation there's an opportunity of seeing what it is that's going on in your mind. Why the mind is doing the things that it is doing, why you're responding to things in the way that you're responding, all the cravings of the mind, all the attachments of the mind. So, if you're in 23 hours in a state of integration, in a state of silence, what is guaranteed is when you sit down for meditation, that balance and that silence will be there. So it's like a mirror reflection. So, one of the greatest obstacles in meditation is in fact the very desire for meditation. This is the huge irony of it, the paradox of it, the absurdity of the situation. You want to sit in meditation, but you want to get something out of it. And that is also just a reflection of almost how you approach every situation in life. Every situation in life, your mind wants to achieve something. Every situation in life, your mind wants to find some way of nourishing your identity. It always wants to nourish your ego. That same tendency is being reflected in your meditation, and that's what's creating such an enormous obstacle. So, egotism is one of the greatest barriers in meditation, and the barrier for the blossoming of life, the expansion of life, isn't it? So, the whole skillful attitude of meditation is you want to be totally in tune with things as they are, to come to terms with things as they are. You observe the mind not because there's any goal that's far away in the distance that you want to achieve. This is how the mind is. It wants to gaze out into the stars, it wants to gaze out into faraway planets at the expense of being rooted in the earth. That is always the tendency of the mind. It always wants to jump from point A to point B to point C to point D to all the way down through the whole alphabet, but it never wants to remain with the immediate. And this is exactly what you're experiencing in meditation. You're finding how your mind, you want to put the center within you, you always want to project it somewhere else. You don't want to just remain with the center. So, you learn how to observe, but you're not observing because you want to attain something out of it. You don't want to observe because there's a goal that you want to achieve in mind. Observing simply for observation's sake. In actuality, that's also a kind of karma yoga. Once we talked about karma yoga, the way of union through action. And that's exactly what Krishna was teaching to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna, and he was getting ready for the battle. And this was a huge battle in the Mahabharata between two families, two very large families. And now these families were split. one army on one side, the other army on the other side. Close to the moments of battle, some doubt arises in Arjuna. Some uncertainty arises in Arjuna. How can I kill these people on the other side? And he's seeing all his old friends, his old family members, uncles, relatives. And how can he fight? And Krishna is saying there's no way to avoid this war. You have to be involved in the war. You have to be involved in action. It's an unavoidable situation. So Arjuna asks him, please, you tell me what I should do. And Krishna starts explaining to him the science of the attitude of karma yoga. He says you must act in the world. Renunciation is not the answer. Removing yourself from situations is not the answer. Escaping from situations is not the answer. You have to face the moment. But your attachments and your cravings must not rule over. You must learn how to be involved in the action. And yet, nothing rules over you. And that's the spirit of karma yoga. So he explains to him the whole attitude of karma yoga. You must fight the war. The war is unavoidable. So what are you going to do? You cannot escape from the situation. So you must act. And yet, while being involved in action, you must not be a slave to action. You must not be entangled in action. And that was the teaching which Krishna had given to Arjuna as his charioteer in the Bhagavad Gita. It represents not just what kind of spirit that should be manifesting in your meditation, but what kind of spirit that should be manifesting throughout your whole life. And the war and the battle that you have to face is an inner battle. Look at how much in your life you're constantly caught up in a dilemma. Your emotion is saying one thing, the heart is saying one thing, the intellect is saying something else, the instincts are saying something else. So many different voices and telling you so many different stories. And you're there in the middle, caught up in this web of voices. What are you going to do? Unless you can bring all the voices together in one symphony, in such a way that they are not fighting against one another, you're always going to be caught in this dilemma. And as human beings, we tend to think of ourselves as a fixed entity, and that's an enormous fallacy. Human beings are not fixed entities. We don't have even a single personality. We're identified with a certain personality, so we have a fixed image of who we think that we are. But if you look very deep into the mind, look into your subconscious, look into your unconscious, you'll see just how much you're such a fragmented being. So many personalities and sub-personalities, selves and sub-selves. In actuality, this is one of the reasons why in Tantra Yoga, you have the images of the many different deities. One aspect of it is they represent certain cosmic energies. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it, they represent different dimensions of your own being, different aspects of your own consciousness. There's that aspect of you which is wisdom, Ganesh. There's that aspect of you which is more compassionate. There's that aspect of you which is the destroyer, Shiva. There's that aspect of you which is the creative energy, Brahma. All these different deities and entities that you're seeing in Tantra Yoga and in many of the systems of the East, they represent different aspects of your own consciousness and your own being. So it's not really so that a human being is a fixed personality. He has so many selves and sub-selves, and actually this is what you also experience in dreams. When you go into a dream, and maybe in some of your dreams you're experiencing different characters, different beings that you're crossing paths with. All those different characters and the different beings that you're encountering in a dream, they are different aspects of your own being, different aspects of your own consciousness, personified, symbolized. These are like signals that your unconscious is bringing to the surface of your perception, to the surface of your mind. And while you're experiencing it, it seems so real that these are literally so many different beings, doesn't it? It seems to be so real, but these are not separate from your being. So this just shows you just how fragmented, with so many personalities and sub-personalities, a human being is. And that's the case in a dream. It's also the case in your waking life. So many voices within you are erupting to the surface. And with all these overwhelming voices, unless you're living out of total awareness, if you're living out of unconsciousness, it's so natural that you will be forgetful about what is your original face, what is your original nature. The voices will be deceiving you. They'll be trying to convince you and seduce you to make you believe that you are so many things that you are not. They're all different parts of you, but there's a dimension within you which remains beyond all this. What is that intelligence? What is that ground of your being? What is that essential nature? So this is precisely what you discover in meditation. You observe, but you don't observe with any goal in mind. You don't observe because you want to attain anything. You let things happen as they are, and that's impossible to avoid. It's inescapable. Whether you like it, whether you dislike it, things will happen as they will happen and as they should happen. It's not something you can change. Maybe you can try to suppress the mind, but the mind, what you're suppressing will not disappear. It will just shift down into the unconscious, and it will be recycled later. It will show up in another form. So things will happen as they will happen. You don't try to be argumentative with it. You observe, but just for the sake of observing. Actions for action's sake. And beyond that, nothing else can be done. And through this being in tune with the immediate moment, now insight starts growing in you. You start understanding why your mind is the way that it is. Once that insight comes, just those moments of seeing things as they are, seeing the flux of the mind, now there comes a certain freedom from all that. So this is why one of the greatest hindrances in meditation is to fix a goal in your mind, because again you're setting your objective elsewhere. You're not being in tune with the immediate. You're getting caught up in this whole power trip of trying to attain something for your ego far away in the future. So that's one of the greatest hindrances in meditation. But as you keep remaining in tune with the immediate, as you continue allowing yourself to rest in awareness, to settle into your awareness, now there are many different indications and signs that will show you that you're on the right track. One of it is, in your daily life you'll find you're living with more clarity. Things are not disturbing your mind as much as they used to be. You're carrying a certain inner silence within you, which is almost immovable, like a rock that remains unmoved even in the wildest wind. There's this silence within you which always remains grounded. It takes some time to come to that space, but once you find elements of that happening in your daily life, then it shows you're on the right track. Another aspect of it is, as you're entering into deeper levels of awareness, you may experience so many different kinds of phenomena, inner visions, different hallucinations, oral hallucinations, visual hallucinations. They may be all kinds of things. Those are not really such important experiences. You should not cling to them. But they are indications that your perception is expanding itself. You're going deeper than the conscious mind. And as you go deeper into from the conscious mind to your subconscious, to your unconscious, you're giving your mind a thorough purification. All those things that are beneath the surface, they need to be revealed. They need to come up to the surface. Only then can you become free from them. As long as they remain hidden in darkness, they will always be torturing the mind. So, as you enter into deeper levels of awareness, all these different kinds of phenomena will happen. One sign that your attention is being sharpened, your concentration is being sharpened, is you may see certain flashing lights in your vision. That just indicates that the energy of the mind is being sharpened. The life energies of the subtle body are reaching the higher centers in the brain. Again, all these different things may be happening. They're just indications along the path. You may awaken different so-called siddhis, certain, I don't want to call them mystical powers of the mind, certain potentials of the mind which were already there, which have always been there, just they've remained untapped. So just like how you can go to the gym and develop a muscle, there are certain capabilities of the mind that become developed as you're entering deeper into the inner layers of your consciousness. So those are the capabilities, the energies which are hidden in your subconscious and your unconscious. You may find, for example, you're becoming immune to the extreme temperatures of hot and cold. You may be able to go for very long extended periods of time without feeling without feeling thirst or hunger. You may develop a certain immunity to pain, for example, or just sitting in one place with your eyes totally closed. You may see what's happening light years away. Really, it sounds crazy, it sounds nuts, but all these things are a possibility, and they can become your living experience. All these so-called powers and capabilities of the mind, they start becoming active. They are indications that you're entering into deeper levels of your being, but it tells you nothing at all about, it has nothing at all to do with enlightenment. You can have all those things and yet remain totally unconscious, totally ignorant of yourself. So even in the midst of these experiences, this is one of the great lessons that you'll learn, that in spite of all these jewels that become revealed to you, still you don't let it touch you. You don't crave after them. You don't cling to them. You remain still the master. You don't let those capabilities rule over you, because then they can become again an enormous nourishment for your ego. And people already, without developing any of these occult capabilities, just by ordinary involvement in the world, they're already creating so much unnecessary suffering for themselves, unconsciously creating so many different sorts of miseries for themselves. And that's not even with these occult capabilities. If you activate those capabilities, and yet you're not totally balanced and grounded, they will create one hell of a mess out of one's life. But if you just sit silently and you let them come to you, you let them be guests in your consciousness, fine, you let the guests be there, but they do not rule over you. Now you can enjoy them. They are not a hindrance. They're only a hindrance once again you bring this one element in. You bring this element of craving. In one way or another, if you just cut away from the root this one weed of the mind, you'll find so many other things just simply they come crashing down. As if this is like a pyramid. At the very bottom of the pyramid is the very foundation of all the troubles, egotism and craving. Once that is cut from the very foundation, the whole structure collapses. It's very much like that. So, one way to understand the kind of purification of the mind that's happening in meditation is that it's just uprooting the weeds of your mind. Just cutting away through one delusion after another delusion after another delusion. This is why it's so essential that you remain with the immediate. It's not only a question of sitting meditation. Whatever you happen to be doing, you let this experience become a conscious experience. And that in itself will bring the insight that is needed, which already exists within you actually. The insight, everything that's needed for you to realize already exists within your own consciousness. Whatever is needed already lies there. They just have to be revealed. Otherwise, as far as your own being is concerned, whatever is needed for your well-being, it already exists. Nothing can be added, nothing can be subtracted. You're already totally self-sufficient. Just the only thing is that in being self-sufficient, do you know you're self-sufficient? Most people do not know that they are self-sufficient. They are totally self-sufficient, just they're ignorant about their own self-sufficiency. And that's what's creating a whole range of miseries for themselves. It's an ironic situation in that even though people are self-sufficient, just because they are not wakeful, just because they're not a bit attentive, now it seems as if everything is lacking, as if they have nothing. In their experience, as if they're beggars, they're in a state of poverty. So, this meditation, it's not a belief system, it's not a philosophy, it's not religion, it's nothing like that. This is just a certain kind of medicine and a certain science. Not just for the expansion of consciousness, but to bring you back to your original state, to bring you back to your original nature, the home which you've never left. You've never left that place. Before the Big Bang, what you are was always the case. When the universe expanded, what you are remained the case. Right now it's already the case. In the future it's always going to be the case. It is birthless and deathless. The body can change. You may occupy many different bodies. The mind can change. You may occupy many different minds. But that nature, that remains untouched. Once you come in tune with that, now this life you will be totally at ease with existence. There's no other way to be except totally at ease with existence. And why should you live with fear? Just think about it. Once you realize that the deepest dimension within you is the same thing that pervades through all things, what's the need for fear? Isn't all fear created because of the idea of something separate from you which is posing as a threat? Once in your experience you see nothing as separate from you, everything is one and the same energy. Why should you be ruled by fear? You'll naturally become fearless. This is why many Buddhas, upon realizing what they are, they naturally lost all fear of death. And they could not help it. It's not a coincidence. Anybody who rediscovers his original nature, he has to lose the fear of death. It's just a scientific situation. Just a cause and effect situation. It's not because of a belief system. It's not because he's following Buddhism, or it's not because he's following Christianity, which is giving him all kinds of false ideas about entering into paradise and God who's judging you in heaven and the day of judgment heaven and hell, the revelations of sacred scriptures, and any of this hallucinatory stuff. It's not because of that. Many of the organized religions have done a great job about that, about actually hypnotizing and making people believe that their being is not self-sufficient as it is, that all the mysteries of existence that you could possibly know, they already exist within your own being. You don't need to read through any scripture to know about it. Those words on the page, they're just corpses, aren't they? Just corpses. They're not living. They cannot be replacements for the beauty of the sun rising. They cannot be replacements for the beauty of existence around you. They cannot be replacements for the stars and the galaxies and this enormous existence which is bursting forth with life. It cannot even be a replacement just even for a single flower in the garden. Just one single flower in a garden amongst hundreds of flowers, that one single flower, it carries more life than all those corpses on the paper. So, meditation is just trying to bring you in tune with the experiential, to bring you in tune with existence. And that's what truth is. Truth means your consciousness is totally in tune with existence. It's not a belief, it's not a philosophy, it's not a conclusion that your mind comes to. If it becomes a conclusion that your mind comes to, doesn't it become a limitation? Any conclusion is a limited possibility. Any conclusion is a limited idea. Beyond that conclusion, you cannot see anything else. That's why the more and more the mind is filled with conclusions, is the more ignorant people become. You've become so dependent on your conclusions, so dependent on your knowledge. You think the universe is one-dimensional. You don't know the immensity of the universe because of your conclusions. You can never know it. Those conclusions will make you very rigid, dogmatic, stuck in a rut. And this is unfortunate that most people, when they think of truth, they're thinking about a belief system, or they're thinking about a philosophy, or they're thinking about some kind of conclusion that your mind comes to. That's not the truth that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the truth that comes when you're living totally in communion with nature.